The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Fox Hill. Communication by Ministers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to report to the Bahamian people that the immigration policies implemented on 1st November are working well and have the continued broad and overwhelming support of the Bahamian community. This support continues notwithstanding some passionate but misdirected attempts to discredit the department from people who ought to know better, but continue to make injudicious statements about this simple administrative exercise. I continue to say that the Department of Immigration is not engaged in any activity which could be called extraordinary. They have done what they have done since I became minister, which is every day they go and check to see that the laws on immigration are enforced. I wish to report further that I had a successful set of meetings in Abaco on the 2nd and 3rd of January, and we will be working with the Abaco community to execute some special measures there within this quarter. The meetings took place in Cooperstown, Marsh Harbor, Hopetown, and Sandy Point. There will be a multi-agency staging meeting in pursuance of our special measures in Abaco on the 20th of February, hosted by the Parliamentary Secretary, the member for North Abaco. All the government agencies are expected to be there to plan the further actions to be taken. This, too, has the broad support of the community. There is a broad recognition that unchecked and undocumented immigration is a national security issue which threatens the very survivability of the state, and this includes its cultural identity and integrity. This exercise is not about jingoism, but about law and order. We also have an obligation to our neighbors to know who is within our borders and to stop the increased smuggling which is being staged in islands in the country in close proximity to the United States. There is a very clever campaign of disinformation, a relentless but unbalanced assault on the officers of immigration and the work of the department, which appears designed to sap the psychological will of the officers and the public to stop the protection of our borders. You are now familiar with the accusations made about the department of, quote, ethnic cleansing, quote, institutional terrorism, and, quote, running Auschwitz in the Bahamas, made by a prominent attorney in Queen's Counsel who describes himself as a human rights advocate. Yet, this human rights advocate felt no compunction in slandering the men and women of the Department of Immigration without cause and refuses to apologize for the slander. Yesterday, in the press, he said that all migrants should all sue the Bahamas government for abuse. He claimed that there are 2,000 hungry lawyers in the Bahamas. He claimed further that if all the suits were brought, that this would bankrupt the Bahamas government, and he invited them to do so. This is coming from a Bahamian citizen and an officer of the court. In law, then, it would seem that the matter is being activated not out of genuine concern for migrants, but rather actuated by malice aforethought. There were two particular cases which came into the public domain. One individual has been charged in the courts. An immigration officer was kicked in the head and had to take 8 days leave as a result of that injury. In both cases, the individuals were not Bahamian citizens. In the other case, the individual was born in the Bahamas to non-Bahamian parents. He found his way to the United States. He was deported from the U.S. for gang activity to Haiti. He smuggled his way back into the Bahamas. He applied for citizenship beyond his 19th birthday. Yet, he's been paroled out of the detention center to regularize his status. And if that status is not regularized, he will suffer the full weight of the law. Were I consulted in the matter, I would have ordered his immediate deportation. But despite this gesture by the department for someone in clear breach of the law, the discretion of the department has now been transformed into a claim of abuse. These cannot go unanswered. There are other cases, and in each case that has been brought to my attention so far, the individuals were validly detained for not being in possession of documents which show that they have a right to live or work in the Bahamas. I repeat the law, which should be obvious. The fact that you were born in the Bahamas does not confer citizenship on you at birth. All individuals, therefore, who were born to non-Bahamian parents are not Bahamian and must have the permission of the Immigration Department to live and work in the Bahamas. You should also have in your possession the passport of your nationality. Most people, Mr. Speaker, are complying with the law. I wish to encourage all to do so, to continue to do so. This will avoid any unnecessary detentions. The Department is satisfied that it is acting according to law, and this is certainly the advice which we are given. The government has committed itself to the improvement of the conditions at the detention center. I also wish to indicate the concern of the government about the discussion in the public domain about what is being described, and I quote, as Chinese investment in the Bahamas. I wish to say that we must be careful that in our political zeal what we say does not come off as racist. There is an old axiom that money knows no color. The Bahamas is a country which has a serious capital deficit. Our traditional partners are not offering capital on terms which can affordably be embraced to develop our country. China has a surplus of capital and is offering excellent commercial terms for the loans which they offer. It is a fact that the two largest investments in this country, which came from China, were approved by the previous administration. It should hardly seem appropriate then for complaints to come from that quarter about Chinese investments. One was a $1 billion investment by the Hutchison Whampoa Group of Hong Kong. The other was the China Export-Import Bank's investment at Bahama of almost $3 billion. The Bahamas operates within a global context. There is no evidence to suggest that there is Chinese state political hegemony or designs for such hegemony over the Bahamas. All the evidence suggests purely commercial terms. If there is evidence to suggest otherwise, the public, including our friends opposite, are invited to indicate otherwise. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs will continue to monitor these events and keep the Bahamian public informed. Within the coming weeks, I hope the Ministry is able to lead a number of public education forums on our foreign policy and the place of the Bahamas within the world. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.